we chosen the book Clockwork Orange. Now we're gonna talk about it a little bit. This English activity were produced by Gustavo, Samuel, Leonardo and Thiago. If you get carried away by despair, you will have no strength in times of anguish. Clockwork Orange, in the original, is a 1971 film. Directed and adapted for the cinema by Stanley Kubrick, the film is based on the eponymous novel by Anthony Burgess, published in 1962. The story is set in the UK, in a dystopian future marked by violence and authoritarianism. Alexander Delarge, the protagonist, leads a gang of young marginals who spread chaos through acts of gratuitous violence. Exploring timeless social and political issues, Clockwork Orange reflects on topics such as juvenile delinquency, psychiatry, free will and moral corruption by the authorities. Disturbing and full of raw images of violence, it became a cult film, acclaimed by the public and critics, and named as one of Kubrick's most iconic works. Clockwork Orange follows the wave of crimes by a British youth gang led by Alexander Delarge. After being arrested and tried for his actions, the protagonist agrees to be part of a psychiatric treatment that would shorten his sentence. Alex is forced to watch scenes of violence and sex for long periods of time, until he feels sick. After being released, he becomes a helpless victim and suffers revenge from those he tormented before. Desperate, he tries to kill himself by jumping out of the window. After the fall, he recovers his mental functions, but the public and the press make him a martyr and the government has to bribe him to maintain his good image. Alex ends up becoming a star, landing on the cover of newspapers with the Ministry of Defense. Curiosities. The author wrote the book to try to save money for his wife, as he had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. However, the doctor had been wrong and he lived for more than 40 years. The book became a movie and when this movie was released, the England thought that happened because of the outbreak of violence in the country. We searched and found a lot of things that was inspired in the Clockwork Orange. Here's some examples. The English band Blur took the imaginary scenery of Clockwork Orange for the clip of their song The Universal. The David Bowie album, The Rise of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, was inspired in Clockwork Orange. The clip Welcome to the Jungle, from Guns N' Roses, present Axl Rose tied on a chair with a strap on your forehead at same time he was watching scenes of violence and sex. The band of punk rock, called Ramones, renamed your song in a car where Alex and your friends are running very fast. The author wrote this book in middle of the belt without be thinking about message between lines because he was diagnosed with cancer and he would have short lifespan, but, as already said before, this diagnosis was fake, even because he lived for 40 years after he had been diagnosed. Samuel, the book and the film take place in an indeterminate future, but as modern as the record store is where Alex meets two girls, the musical taste remains the same as when the film was recorded. Records like Magical Mystery Tour, 1968, by the Beatles, After the Gold Rush, 1970, by Neil Young and Adam Hart Mother, 1970, appear on the first shelf of the store. Even the soundtrack of 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968, also by Kubrick, can be seen alongside Alex. In the scene where Alex, Malcolm McDowell, talks to the priest about Ludovico therapy, it is possible to see the prisoners marching in a circle in the courtyard. The scene recreates a painting by Vincent van Gogh, Prisoners Exercising, 1890. Desperate for money, Anthony Burgess, the writer of the work, sold the film's adaptation rights to Mick Jagger for just $500. The musician planned to make the film with the Rolling Stones as the Droogs, but ended up reselling the rights for a much larger amount. The scene in which Alex Delarge sings the famous Singin' in the Rain while attacking the writer and his wife was not in the script, which has already been discussed here. Stanley Kubrick spent 4 days experimenting with this scene. Finally, he approached McDowell and asked if he could dance. When they tried the scene again, McDowell was dancing and singing the only song he remembered. The scene pleased Kubrick and he had to buy the rights to Singing in the Rain for $10,000. McDowell met Gene Kelly, singer of Singin' in the Rain, years later. During that meeting, Kelly ignored him and left in disgust. He was extremely upset by the way his iconic music had been portrayed in Clockwork Orange. Reasons for reading. The author of the book produced his own language for the story, incorporated into the narrative. The dialect called Nadsat, inspired by the Russian language. This unprecedented way of communication brings an interesting immersion for the reader, making him stick to the book. The Nadsat dialect is young, used among Alex's gang members. Some of the dialects are, Drig, which means friend. Moloko means milk. And horror show meaning the word good. The book contains entertainment which contains philosophical questions that have not yet been answered. It brings to the reader an important reflection of philosophy about an ethical debate with society, about today's society. For example, is he good by nature or because of state laws and punishments? How far can the government interfere in the population's free will to promote, in theory, our collective security? And at one point in the book, the main character, Alex, asks the following question: is there anything wrong with punishing violent individuals for the same violent way?